Well, welcome back, friends, to the Polish Podcast. We hope you're enjoying this insightful discussion with today's guest, Ann Thompson. But now it's time to add a splash of spontaneity and a sprinkle of fun to the show. It's time for Ask Me Anything. So, Ann, this is how Ask Me Anything works. We're about to uncover the woman behind the profession, the quirks behind your expertise. I've received 3 questions from one of our previous podcast guests, and your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to answer these questions so that we can have a deeper insight into who you are. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
All right. Today's questions were curated by Kelly Werner. She is the founder of an awesome organization called Mission Single, and we're going to learn more about her story in a couple months from today. But yeah, she's on mission to create communities for single women and to help them see the greater story of their lives, in their work, but also in the church as well. And so I'm really excited for everyone to learn more about her work. Yeah. But she curated these 3 questions for you, Ann. And the first one I have for you, question 1.
If you could have dinner with any historical figure, who would it be?
Oh, goodness. That's a zinger. That's a zinger. Any of these, pick one questions are always hard for me.
They are hard.
Here's what I will say. This is a person who is a historical figure for me.
Okay, great.
My biological father died when I was an infant. He had died when I was 3 months old, so I never knew him. And if I could have dinner with anyone, I would have dinner with him. I would just want to know who he was. I would want to experience him. And I had a great stepdad who came into my life when I was only a year and a half old, but I would have dinner with my dad.
Oh, that's sweet, Ann. I didn't know that about your story. Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, I would do the same thing too if that were me. For sure. Okay, question 2.
If you could have any leadership superpower, what would it be and why?
Oof. I would say that the power that I struggle with the most would be the ability that I would love to have and be really good at it. I would like to be really good at conflict, not because I want to be in conflict, but because I know conflict is a reality. And every time conflict for me is challenging and it pushes all my buttons and and I have to work really hard to navigate it well. And had I had a superpower in managing conflict healthily for myself and for the other person, I would take that superpower. And then I would teach it to everyone I can find, because it's a rare power and it's rare that we're good at it. And boy, if we were good at it, how much bitterness and arguing and division could we avoid?
Yep. It's so true. It's so true. I had a podcast guest on and she said that conflict is care. And I was like, I hear you. I'm struggling to get on, because her point was it gets the conversation going so we can get our perspectives on the table and navigate it together. And I get that. But then my hands just got all sweaty. Listening to her time. Yeah. And I was like, okay, God, obviously that's an area that I need to grow in. So
I hear you. Me too.
Yeah. Well, that makes question 3 interesting, Ann, because question 3 is,
how do you handle conflicts within your team as a leader?
Oh boy, I've been through so much learning on this. I would say my default in the past was to avoid it. And that was not a healthy approach at all. I would avoid it, or I would make kind of passive comments, hoping that someone would get the hint that there was a problem. Or I would just take care of the problem unbeknownst to the other person. What I'm learning in conflict is I'm learning, first of all, to express what I need. And I'm learning to listen even more. I think I've always been a pretty good listener. But in conflict situations, my listening skills go out the door. So I have to be much more intentional about listening for the other person's perspective and their understanding of a situation and their thoughts and feelings and those things. And so, and I'm learning that to handle conflict well, it starts with listening.
It does. Yeah.
It just starts with listening and understanding the other person's point of view, not listening with an eye toward how am I going to combat this, or how am I going to tell them that they're wrong, or how am I going to disprove that what they think, but listening from a place of truly saying, I really want to understand. And if I understand you, I'm going to ask you if you'd be willing to understand me.
Yeah.
And then let's get to a solution, either that we both agree, even though one of us isn't getting our way, or we agree to a compromise. And to do that in a timely manner, meaning not to let it sit for too long and not to go involve 3 other people before I have that conversation, because that's, let's be honest, just gossip, but going straight to the person, seeking to understand first. And oftentimes, again, it's kind of like what we talked about before with this idea of exposing a fear or a lie, that it starts to dissipate. Many times the conflict starts to go away when we just seek to understand each other.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's so good, Ann. I appreciate your vulnerability in answering that question. It's a good reminder to all of us that we're all growing. All leaders are growing. We're all growing. So, but Ann, thank you so much for sharing that with us. And here's the thing, friends, we want you to join the conversation too. Do you have a burning question or a curious wondering about our guest? Now is your chance to be a part of the action. You can visit our website at polishnetwork.org to submit your questions there, become a Polish Podcast MVP, and get a mention plus insight into your favorite guests and leadership topics. So send in those questions today.